Hi, I'm David, and this is Running Cyberpunk. This episode, we're going to be talking about your first mission in Cyberpunk, your first job, the first time the player characters are going to meet bad guys and NPCs and interact with your world. This is auspicious. This is the beginning of everything, right? So in this episode, we're going to make one, right? I want to cover a couple of little topics with you first, and then I'm going to go through how I put together a scene, certainly the first scene in a game. And then later on, we'll talk about like other theories and why you might do some things over others. I just want to go through real quick how I do things so that you can go off and be dangerous with those tools and start your own thing, right? So let's get right into it. Oh, and of course, at the end of this, we're going to talk about some media for Cyberpunk to help get you up to speed with all the Cyberpunk goodness that's out there. So your first mission, it's got to be exciting. It's got to be fun, right? I personally feel like this is the golden opportunity to set the tone for your game, decide the pacing for your game, and really introduce your players to what combat is like for you. What is investigation like for you? How are NPC interactions going to be like with you as the referee for your game, right? And to talk a little bit about the jobs are pretty easy, right? The characters are going to accept a job from a fixer. They're going to get paid cash, Eurobucks, eddies, EBs, however they want to be called. Either way, they're going to be paid a flat fee per character, typically. Sometimes there's a favor, sometimes they're making good on something, but generally speaking, they're getting some cash for the job. And they might get to keep the loot, right? Depends on what the nature of the job is. Maybe they have to go in and get something or grab somebody, like corporate espionage. Maybe they're extracting some scientist or something like that. We have to decide all of those things later on. But either way, they're getting paid to do a thing, right? And each player character is going to get some lump sum of money, typically. The thing about the job, though, jobs come from fixers who set up jobs for runners, for edge runners. And there are all kinds of different fixers that do all kinds of different things, but there are some that find jobs for people. And they are like matchmakers, right? There are clients out there that need stuff done, and then there are fixers who know crews that can get things done. A fixer is not going to assign a team to a job that the fixer doesn't think they can handle. So, if the crew of players you've put together don't have a netrunner, the fixer's probably not going to put them on a job that requires a netrunner. If they don't have a solo, well, this job might be a little bit more intrigue and investigation, less combat-centric, right? It just depends on the makeup of the crew. And when we went back to the first episode, we talked about how you're going to work with the players to make their characters, or you're going to decide the first couple of characters for them especially. But either way, this mission is kind of tailored to them, because the fixer who sent them on this job knew who they were, knew what they could do, and was careful about the mission they sent them on, okay? So kind of think about that whenever you're putting these together, that the fixers have lots of options, and the player characters are getting offered maybe only a handful. So this is not like D&D where there's the quest board in town and they walk up and let's go take care of that manticore. No, this is not like that. It's not like that. They go and talk to the guy that they trust. The guy says, I don't know. I think y'all can handle like this job. And that's about it. and maybe that's how they get started, right? When they first meet a fixer, it's like, I got this job. It could go sideways and I wouldn't be burned for it. So I'm going to give it to the new crew. Right? Because fixers need to do good at matchmaking crews. And so the really high-end clients they've got, the clients that can burn them to the ground, they don't hand those jobs to the new Greenhorn runners. They only hand those jobs to the edge runners that they know and trust, right? So this is all about building relationships, and your first mission is building that relationship not only with the players and you in the game, but also the player characters and their fixer, or one of the fixers that they get access to in your game. One other thing to kind of note in here for anybody who's coming from D&D, combat in Cyberpunk Red is very easy to balance. Very easy to balance. There's no challenge rating system, right? Because there's no spells. There's no special abilities and legendary actions and none of that junk. Layer actions. None of that exists here. Okay? It is players can take an action, and that action can be to shoot something or punch something or grab something. And, their powers are relatively straightforward, and it's just about, intelligently and tactically applying those abilities in combat, right? And maybe not everything needs combat, because I don't know if I mentioned it well enough in the past, but Cyberpunk is mostly a role-playing game because combat is deadly. And so the player characters ought to not start with combat, because if they keep leading with combat in Cyberpunk Red, eventually the dice are just going to kill those characters, right? So they need to be role-playing a lot. In this first mission, though, we're not going to let them do that. In this first mission, we're going to start them in the thick of it. They're going to be in the mission, already in progress, and something terrible just happened. And that's how we're going to start your game. And the reason why we do it this way is I have played in all kinds of games at conventions and at houses and at game stores and all that kind of stuff. And if the first job starts with them meeting their fixer, they can screw up meeting the fixer. They have to negotiate with the fixer. And then there's do they do the job or do they just bail on the job, right? There's all these things that could get in the way of just getting to your mission. And that's just because Cyberpunk's deadly and dangerous, and, everything that you can do in the real world, you can do in Cyberpunk, right? If a player character doesn't like the interaction with an NPC, they might say, I'm going to kill that guy, take his agent, and try and grab all those contacts for myself. Okay, let's not even risk any of that stuff for our first mission. Let's just start them in the thick of it. Things are already pear-shaped, and now we get to adjust and work on our survival tactics, right? Because again, Cyberpunk is about survival, so we want to set that right out the gate. This is something you don't get to do a lot, right? You don't often get to start your player characters in a mission, certainly one that's already gone sideways. I like to do that for the first job. For the first job, it's fun and exciting to say, hey, yeah, you took this job. This is a fixture and everything was all cool in the gang. You're on here to grab some loot or grab a scientist or grab something from a house, a lab, a security depot out in the sticks, whatever it is. You open this door and, I don't know, somebody died. Or you got on the grounds and all of a sudden the guy that has all the cyberware just seized up and fell over, right? The guy who is bristling with chrome is effectively out of combat, and there are dogs coming, there are guards coming, that kind of thing. So you're going to start off with a bang, and your first mission is going to be all about the player characters getting out of that situation and hopefully grabbing some loot along the way, and maybe beginning to suss out that there was a betrayal, right? Betrayals are pretty common in the world of Cyberpunk. Think in terms of hard-boiled detective stories with, the Maltese Falcon and film noir and all that kind of stuff. Those elements, those themes exist readily in Cyberpunk. So always be ready to filter in a little betrayal, a little double cross in your world. Maybe between the NPCs and the player characters are caught up in that, or an NPC is betraying one of the player characters right now on this job, right? Maybe they're on a job that relates to somebody's backstory, right? So if you can work in the backstory into this job, you're doing great. Keep at that. Keep at that. So let's get right into it. I am going to start sharing my screen. Okay, so this is Roll20. Of course, you can use any tabletop simulator type thing. Tabletop Simulator is a great program. Roll20, Foundry, or you're doing this in person, right? I'm just using this as a place to gather assets, to gather images for us to use in this example. First thing we need is a setting, right? We need a place where this is going to happen. This could be at a house. This could be in a government building, that kind of thing. And I will just pick on something I've already used quite a bit. This is a brutalist building, okay? Brutalist architecture is awesome in Cyberpunk. Go out and find yourself some brutalist architecture. Say, hey, everybody, this is the exterior shot for the place you're in. And watch the players kind of like, oh, it's a fortress. Got it. It's like, yeah, well, this is a world with Borgs. This is a world with AV4s. This is a world with tanks operated by corporations. So, yeah, the municipality buildings here are stronger than your average municipality building, right? The walls are, at least 2 feet thick concrete. Right? Something along those lines, just to kind of set the stage, set the mood. And I like to do the exterior shot. This is like a film and TV thing, right? Exterior shot. This is where your event is going to happen, right? So go look up brutalist architecture, go find a bunch of images, download all of them, and use them. They're fantastic. Now that we have our building, let us have our floor. Let me go and find my floor. And so we'll say, hey, this job is going to happen in a lowly apartment. Okay, there's some bad guy in here or some mark that we need to have brought in, and this guy is going to be that apartment is a little big. Just as a quick aside, the toilet should be right at the 2-meter mark. So I like to just find wherever my toilet is and make sure that a person can stand there and they occupy the whole square. So I base everything on the toilet whenever I find one of these maps. Everything's going to happen in this apartment. And if I wanted to, there's a couple of extra assets that I could toss in here from this same guy. Like maybe my person here is a plant guy. So I'll just toss in the plant here as well. So here I've got this plant, and maybe this is part of the job. This guy has stolen some plants from Biotechnica, and Biotechnica is paying my runners 500 eddies a head to have these plants secured, right? That is our job here. That is our job today, is these plants, because I pulled them out of my list of assets. That's it, right? And because it's plants, I'm putting all of this on Biotechnica. All right. So next up thing that I need to do is go and grab an NPC. You can do a lot of different things on the NPC front. Okay, there's a lot of different ways to get NPCs. I want to show you a Discord server that I helped found with John the Wise called Cyberpunk 2020 Red Fans, and this Discord server has a fantastic channel. NPC-4-U, NPC for you, okay? And it is nothing but a bunch of tokens for a bunch of NPCs that the community has brought together from various artists. There's credit to all these artists in here, and just kind of go through, find yourself some folks, and you know what? This chica right here looks like a bad bitch. She is the one stealing these plants. What a rebel. All right, so gonna upload that real quick and make that nice and small. Oh gosh, smaller please. Okay, cool. So she's gonna be in here, and she's the one that is stealing these plants. She's the person kind of in charge of all of this. We need to get past her, right? And so she's gonna be in here, and maybe I want to grab a couple other assets, like maybe she has a little drone, and I've got a cool drone that I like to use. Looks kind of scary. This little guy. And so I'm going to give her this little like automated droid thing that hangs out in her kitchen front area of the apartment. So while she, sleeps soundly at night, very cozy in her bed, she has this like walker droid drone in here. It's being controlled by, a deck somewhere that is just like, if anybody walks in without her RFID tag, it knows that they're an enemy and it's going to shoot them and kill them, kind of thing. All right, so we've got a little drone, we've got this lady, and all of this came from that Discord. If, however, you're wanting to get the next NPC, like maybe their fixer, they're going to talk to quite often, the fixer's not really a token, I wouldn't say, like a combat asset. So for that, I like to go over to artbreeder.com. And, artbreeder.com is a fantastic place to just get images of people, right? Just go through here and, oh man, Kenny Bro 7, cool. Our fixer is this dude. This guy right here is our fixer. Just randomly, when we're ready, we're going to pull fixer into here as well. And nice and big, nice and big. Artbreeder.com, awesome site for images of people. So 2hit here, he's our fixer. He's the one that sent us on this job, and we'll go meet 2hit later on. And then in here, this person, let's name her as well. She is a scientist, Dr. Sully. And Dr. Sully is making off with goods from this place. Now, we have our scene. We have our basic setup. This is a very straightforward situation. We have a combat droid, and we have Dr. Sully in here, and we got some plants that the NPCs, or that the player characters need to make off with, right? How are we going to start this mission? Your player characters, I'm just going to grab this image right here. So let's say we've got 3 players here, right? And what I like to do for your first mission, give them another NPC. Like maybe they have a solo. Maybe this is our solo that's been attached to the crew, or maybe this is another doctor that's been attached to the crew. Either way, we have this other NPC with us. Him or her, whoever this person is, they're going to be the ones to open this door. And on the other side is going to be this drone. Okay? And this drone knows anybody who opens that door I don't like, they get a face full of gun, right? And so our poor NPC opens the door and immediately dies. And that's the beginning of your game. Okay, so you start off the situation by saying, hey, everybody, you're all on this job. Your job is to go and rescue these plants from this person that has stolen from Biotechnica. And your MacGuffin can be anything you like. The NPC can be anything you like. I'm just kind of spitballing a thing here just so you can kind of see how I put these things together. And I like to start the first session you have with your crew with an NPC dying, right? Because now the player characters now all have to deal with this situation. This droid is going to walk out of here if it can and continue to kill people in the hallway because it now has a way out. And the player characters are there to catch that. And they still have a job to do, right? They still have to get stuff done. And if I go back to our first episode where I said, hey, the dead solo at your feet, you only have seconds to rifle through their things, and you find a little data chip that says insurance on it. Well, maybe this person right here is that dead solo, right? And now we know how that dead solo got there. We know why you only have seconds to spare. It's because there's this murderous machine that's going to step out here and start killing people. And, we have more questions about who this person is, who's after them, maybe even questions about our fixer up here. Was our fixer involved in this? Or is our fixer getting double-crossed, right? So we've got lots of cool things to fill out here. And, I'm just kind of grabbing this apartment that I got off of Patreon. But folks, you don't have to go get a pre-made thing. There's a lot of really great map makers out there these days. Don't get me wrong. There's tons of great map makers out there these days. But you can just Google floor plans. Like, I just Google floor plans laboratory, and I don't know, this one looks pretty good. There's lots of stuff happening in this laboratory, and I can just grab this, toss this into Roll20, and thicken up some of these walls, and all of a sudden I have a very dynamic floor plan for my player characters to fight their way out of, right? Likewise, there's a really great website called Yet Another Traveler blog, and over there they've made geomorphs. And a geomorph is a set of maps that can interlock. So if you need to make a truly huge building space with an elevator section and loading and unloading and all kinds of things like a med bay and all that kind of stuff, go check out Yet Another Traveler blog and their geomorph library. It's like 200 pages of maps and map assets, and it's all for free. and it all works in Roll20. It's super good. And, check out Patreon, because there's tons of map makers right now on Patreon. And folks, if you are a map maker or you know a map maker, leave comments below for the map makers you like. I'm going to link some of the ones that I like to use, like the one I've got shown here. But by all means, go and find those resources. Join the Cyberpunk 2020 Red fans Discord. I'm going to link to that down below. Get NPCs. There's a whole thing for battle maps as well, right? There's all kinds of just great content in here for you to take and use in your game. All kinds of great discussion in here as well. So these are some of the ways that I put stuff together, right? I go and get a map from anywhere I like. I go and get faces from anywhere I like. I used Artbreeder because it makes these nice headshots, but honestly, this is Cyberpunk. There are like regular looking people out there, so just grab some photos, right? Go load up Cyberpunk 2077, make a character in there, and boom, grab that headshot, right? EVE Online, Saints Row, other great games to grab headshots from that are very Cyberpunk-esque, right? They have like scars and all kinds of stuff you can put on the faces. So I just showed you some quick hit ways of getting some things, but you can sit there and make meticulously exactly the look you're going for in 3 different video games that are all really set in this sci-fi scene and allowing you to make whatever image, whatever tone you're going for. When this is all done, we will talk about actually running all of this. I just wanted to kind of set the stage for you and talk about some of the places I get these assets from and how I would set up my very first session, my very first scene in the game. After this, there are all kinds of threads and all kinds of stories you can lay in that spawn from this, and ways you can bring in the backstories and all those things. We're going to talk about that as we go along. All right, big cam now. So let's talk about the day's media. We talked about a book last time. Let's do a movie this time. So I can't get you started. This is kind of like Neuromancer. I gotta get you here. And I'm going to go with the newer version, Blade Runner 2049, which came out in 2017. Blade Runner, the original, is a fantastic movie, but it is set in its day, and it's a slower paced movie. And the audiences of today, you might find Blade Runner too slow a pace. But Blade Runner 2049, that's a faster paced movie. And there's a lot of stuff going on in there. Blade Runner 2049 is a fantastic movie, deeply rooted in the cyberpunk genre. Flying cars, big monolithic buildings. The main players in all of it are just trying to survive, with the power brokers above untouchable, right? Jared Leto playing the head of Tyrell Corp, just completely untouchable. And poor little K, he has to navigate his way through the mean world of Blade Runner. And that movie does a phenomenal job of setting tone and setting cyberpunk for you. So if you are, if you have not seen it before, go and see it. If you have seen it before, go and watch it again, but this time think in terms of, okay, if I was a GM and I put this scene together, how would I have done that, right? Like, let's say the fight between Decker and Kay in the old opera house in Vegas. How would you have put that one together, right? How would you have set that scene? How would you have gotten those assets together to make that fight come to fruition and allow them to negotiate during the fight? Because that was they were trying to kill each other and roleplay at the same time, right? And within Cyberpunk, you can do that. So, analyze that movie from a GM's perspective. And I think that through doing that effort, you're going to come away with some really cool ideas about how to track your players, how to have unreliable sources of information that are very believable in the time and make sense in the context of your world that you're putting together. So Blade Runner 2049 should be a study item for any new GM looking at Cyberpunk. That's pretty much all I have for you all today. Thanks a ton for watching. As always, have fun and play well.